All right, everyone. Let's go ahead and take our seats. Hello, everyone. Hi, hello. I know we're having so much fun mingling, but we have another session coming up from True Classic Teas. So if y'all can come and take your seats, grab your drink, grab your food, and just quiet down a little bit so that we can bring our next speaker out, please. That would be amazing. Two quick announcements that I want to give to everyone. If you guys are watching the live stream right now, we have over 300,000 viewers joining us live watching the Whalies on the X live stream. All right, everyone. If y'all could just take your seats and quiet down, please. We're bringing out our next speaker. Joining me on stage to talk about the data platform that disruptors need but don't know how to ask for, we have Christina Springer Owen, Director of Marketing Science and Analytics from True Classic Teas. Let's give her a big round of applause, please.
Welcome to the Whalies. Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. Bragging about True Classic is one of my favorite things to do, so thank you so much for taking a seat and taking the time to listen to this speech. Awesome. If you don't know True Classic is a $250 million bootstrapped and profitable brand. We make men look and feel good with high quality apparel at affordable price points. And if you haven't tried us yet, we make the best fitting t-shirt that you will ever wear. All right, so everyone, I get it. We're all founders in this room. We're new businesses, we're young brands, and we're frustrated with our data platforms, right? Everything is so disjointed. Our data doesn't match across any of our sources. You integrated all these vendors to help you with this problem, but now you're reliant on them and their timelines to get you the data that you need. Your KPI training that you did for your team didn't work. No one knows how to name their KPIs. Pulling data manually is such a waste of time, and I'm getting worked up just thinking about it, right? So how about this? Can everyone do this with me? Let's just all take a deep breath. Actually, wait, you guys seem pretty frustrated about your data platforms, right? Do you need to scream about it? Okay, let's do this. On the count of three, I want you to all just let it out. So on the count of three, give me a ha, okay? All right, ready? 1, 2, 3, ha! Oh, that feels better. I feel better. Thanks for doing that with me. All right, so yes, I am gonna talk about data platforms. Yes, it is gonna be nerdy, but you should care about this. Because you're a young brand, you're a startup, or you're a founder. You have a business because you believe that you're doing something differently than anybody else has ever done it. That is the core definition of innovation. Every day, you need to be able to ask and answer questions better than you did yesterday. If you invest in your data platform strategy, that is an insurance policy for your most important asset, your winning business strategy. So today, I'm gonna show you the one key differentiator. When I walk into a business, almost every time, they have not done this, and it sets up your organization for success. If your startup brand does this one key thing, it will set up your data strategy and your business strategy for long-term success. So before I tell you that, hi, my name is Christina Springer Owen. I'm the Director of Marketing Science and Analytics at True Classic, and I have a decade of experience building data platforms for disruptors and billion-dollar brands. When I walk into a business, I always see the same problem. Executive decision makers can't make the right decisions if they don't have the right information. And if those executive decision makers don't have the right information, it's because their data doesn't work the way that they think. So I see my job as translating decision makers' brains into data platforms. And I'll show you today the one key thing you can do to make that happen for your business. So first of all, let's talk about the position that a lot of you are probably in. When you're a young brand, you start out pretty clean. You're on Shopify, and you've got a whole bunch of integrations, your ads integrations, your e-commerce integrations, your fulfillment, your CRM. All those things talk to each other. Those sources talk, and you're able to see all the data in those platforms, and it just kind of lives in the platforms, right? So you need to build a P&L, you need to build a financial model. And so you're a young business, we're scrappy, we're going to just pull all that data out of our platforms manually, and we're going to import it into our financial model. This works pretty well for you for a while. You're young, right? It's fine. But then you start to scale. And now you have a paid media team. Now you have a merchandising team and a sales team and an e-commerce team. And you hired really good experts to come in and tell you how to scale those departments. So they need to do what they do best, which is figure it out and analyze and strategize. They start to build their own sources of truth. They start to build their own spreadsheets, their own models, and they all do it a little bit differently. So now we're starting to get a lot of data sources, right? And all the time, your business is growing in scope and complexity. The data that you have in your financial model is getting more and more complicated. So you think, okay, well, nothing ever matches, so what if we just integrated some reporting platforms and put those together, right? We get some reporting add-ons. We add GA, we add better reports, right? But all of those vendors, they kind of just do one thing really well. Yeah, it's great. They do it really well. You want the expert in the platform, but they don't talk to each other. They're competitors, and they're all trying to be proprietary and innovative, so they all do something a little differently too. And now we've just multiplied the problem. We now have so many other disconnected reporting platforms. Your team sees that shiny new data source, and they start to take that data and import it into their own reports. And now we have so many different sources of truth. And you, the executive decision maker, you don't know what to look at, and you start to lose trust in your data. You think, okay, well, what if we just trained everybody? What if we just told everyone the definitions of the KPIs? Everyone would listen, they would learn, we'd fix all the platform integrations, and then everything would work, right? But after you do that, you invest all that time in KPI training, 5 minutes passes, and no one remembers it. KPI training, unfortunately, does not work unless you do this one key thing. My friends, unfortunately, as your business grows and scales in complexity, you have created the business logic black hole. All of your core financial data, the unique things that are specific to your business that your vendors don't consider in their reports, live siloed behind your finance team. Nobody else knows that information, how to navigate it except your finance team, and none of your data sources are tying and matching. It becomes really, really hard to make decisions. Data chaos has a really severe long-term impact on your organization. I've walked into organizations at different stages of this degradation process, and I always see two major issues. The first one is opportunity cost. If you can't ask and answer better questions today than you asked yesterday, you won't be able to grow in scope and complexity. If your data isn't agile and stable enough to keep up with you, you're going to miss critical insights and leave money on the table. Sure, you may know your top selling products, and you know who all your customers are, but can you tell me which segments of your customers are buying which products and which top 10 products work for those segments of customers and how to market to them specifically, how to speak to them and provide their true value props? Maybe not. Maybe your data isn't stable or agile enough for those more advanced questions. The second major impact is company culture. You hire a new employee, they've got bright and shiny eyes, they're so ready to get into the weeds and answer all your complex questions and do an amazing job, and then they end up sloughing through just the endless slog of data validation and pulling data manually, and over time, innovation decreases because data chaos erodes intellectual curiosity. Your employees that keep trying, some of them will stop, but your employees that keep trying are now penalized with the task of manually wrangling data if they want to do a great job for you and answer all those complex questions. If these problems sit over time in your organization, they will slowly erode your company culture, and you will, again, leave money on the table. So, all right, enough complaining. How do we fix it? How do we find data nirvana? So a great data platform is two things. It is stable. It's firmly fixed. It's not likely to move or change. It is steadfast and dependable. And a good data platform is agile. It's marked by the ready ability to move quickly, and it's well coordinated. You can define it, you can update it quickly, right? So how do you build a great data platform? All right, we're gonna get a little technical. So the first thing you do is you have to warehouse your data. You have to own your data. You cannot skip this step. We all wanna skip this step. We cannot skip this step. At True Classic, for example, we have all these different sales channels. We have data from Shopify. We have data from Amazon. We have to pull it all together and store it in one common location. That's the first thing we do. The second thing is we have to take all that raw data from all those sources and consolidate it into logical tables. Maybe you'll have an orders table. Maybe you'll have a products table and a customer table. The point is all of your data from all of your different sources lives in one place and sits together logically. The third thing is you have to apply your business logic. So you're gonna take your finance team and you're gonna take your data team and you're gonna lock them in a room together and you're gonna make them fight to the death until they walk out of that room with a common understanding and a core alignment of what your KPI definitions are. It may seem obvious what the difference between gross and net revenue is, but every business I've ever walked into does it differently. At True Classic, our returns rate is highly predictable. So we have a predictive returns decay logic that we account in our net revenue, right? That's something that's really unique to our business. And your business also has something really unique that you have to consider. If you apply this business logic to your consolidated data, you now get to do the fun part. You get to connect all of your visualizations, your P&L, your Tableau reports, all of your different reports and analyses and dashboards all get to connect to this beautiful metrics layer. And now all of your data ties across sources. A lot of your vendor partners will support you streaming this data back into their partners if you want to use their tech. Some of your vendors will help you with this and do this for you, right? But if you do this, it will have a huge impact on the stability of your data strategy over time. So the one critical mistake that I always see companies make is failing to centralize their data. If you don't do this, you will miss out on so much opportunity. Now, let's use a real-world example from True Classic. I'll show you how True Classic does this today. So, like I mentioned, we have all sorts of sales channels: Shopify, Amazon, Walmart, brick and mortar retail, right? If we didn't have that data consolidated, it would be really hard for me every day to tell my president and my CEO, hey guys, here's how many orders we're doing today. Here's the value of those orders, right? So we take source data from those platforms. We ingest it into an automated data pipeline tool called Fivetran, and we store it in BigQuery. We can do this because we're a big business, right? We're a $250 million brand. We have some data resources. So we built our own data warehouse. Next, we have a data model. We've taken all of our data from those sources, we've consolidated it, and we've created common logical tables: a customers table, a product table, an inventory table, an orders table, and so forth. We have all of our custom business logic. True Classic is highly focused on profitability, so our KPIs, our P&L, really gets down to our exact profitability and ties back to our accounting processes. Because we feel the need to know today what's not just my ROAS, but what's my profitable ROAS. If you subtract out all the OpEx, if you subtract out all the costs, how much money are we actually making as a return of our ad spend? So our business logic is pretty complex and robust, and as you scale, yours gets there too. And then our visualizations, yes, our P&L, right? Can you imagine not having to import data into your P&L anymore? Our P&L, all of our visuals are connected to that layer. Now, again, we can do this because we're a big business, but one of the core things that I really like about Triple Whale 3.0, right? Sure, the AI is cool, the chat's cool, the forecasting logic is cool, but they did solve this one core problem. In order to support all of that, they had to build this consolidated layer. I've been using it since December, and it works similarly to the one that I built in-house. So I'm really excited about that because I'm a big nerd about this problem, and working with a partner that's fixing it is super exciting to me. All right. Awesome. Now, the other huge benefit of this is that great dashboards built on great data platforms are highly customizable. Every day, the question that you're going to ask about your business is different. I cannot stand dashboards that look like this. The only information I know is what I see on this screen. I don't get to know any more detailed questions. I don't get to ask and answer any more complex questions than what I see on this screen, right? But if your data stack is highly agile, highly stable, you're able to build much more customizable visualizations. So you can build this. The thing that I know best how to describe this to you is by explaining the tool that you already use on a day-to-day basis, right? The Meta self-service pivot table. I'm guessing probably, show of hands, how many of you guys have used this report in Facebook Ads Manager before? Yeah, a lot of you. Okay. you can ask and answer all sorts of custom questions, right? You can select from a list of dimensions, country, platform, wherever your ad name, your campaign name, whatever you want, hundreds of dimensions in there, and you can calculate all sorts of metrics, your ROAS, your impression count, your reach count, your CPMs, all that's available in here, and you can toggle it to be a table, a bar chart, a line chart, right? The thing that powers this is that consolidated data model. And the really exciting thing, again, about being a data nerd is that this is actually a lot easier to build than this if your data platform is centralized and stable, right? Much, much better way to run your business and think about your insights and reports. All right, so again, a great data platform is highly stable, firmly fixed, not likely to move or change, steadfast, and dependable. There are 3 key pillars of a stable data platform. The first one, your data is centralized. All your data sources are standardized into a single platform. Your KPI definitions are thoughtfully designed, aligned, and pre-calculated, and you got to decide how to calculate your KPIs, not your vendors, who will all do it differently than each other and compete with each other in that differentiation. Secondly, your data platform is consistent. Because you've centralized it, it creates consistency. So because you pre-calculated your KPIs, you connected those to all your visuals, everything matches. If you want to change your definition, if you want to get more advanced, if you launch on Walmart, right, you can now fix that problem at the source. You don't have to go into the 100 reports that you've created and edit it everywhere. And some of them it'll work and some of them won't. And now you've created a worse and worse problem for yourself, right? You can fix it at the source because everything's connected. It's going to automatically stream downstream to all your other platforms. And lastly, it's accessible. So those data models are accessible to every single one of your team members. They're easy to use. You've put them in a self-service pivot table dashboard, right? This helps you reclaim your team's energy by lifting from them the mental load of constant skepticism, which is staggering, right? You've empowered and enabled your team's intellectual curiosity. A great data platform is agile. It's marked by the ready ability to move quickly and easily, and it is well coordinated. There are 3 key pillars of an agile data platform. It is flexible, it is self-service, and it is fast, right? As disruptors, we are constantly pushing ourselves to ask better questions than we did yesterday. Every day you're innovating, you have to. That's what keeps you afloat. If your data platform can't keep up with you, you're not going to be able to do that. You're going to leave money on the table. It's self-service. As strategists, you need to be able to answer questions. Your marketers need to be able to ask and answer questions, and your merchandisers, right? If you've provided them those tools, they can do that themselves. And lastly, it's fast. Your data has to be prepared with the answers before you ask the questions. This is one of the most important things, I think, to running any business. Every year is just a sum of the 365 days of daily game time decisions that went into the making of that year. Your real-time data is critical for that daily decision making. So to really illustrate that, I want to tell a story about True Classic. So I'll talk about last year, our cyber month for True Classic. Cyber is huge for us. We're a seasonal business. We make a lot of our money, a lot of our revenue, and a lot of our profit in November. And we also spend a lot of money on ads in November. So last cyber, we went into cyber with a completely different strategy than we actually executed cyber with. One thing I love about working for this company is we are every day in the weeds, looking at the data every single day, trying to make the best decision we can possibly make on that day, right? So in the days before cyber, we're meeting 6 a.m., 9 a.m., noon, and we're talking about how are things going? Can we do anything better? Can we improve this? Can we make more profit somehow, right? And we're brainstorming, and someone on our team comes up with the idea, and they say, hey, last year on cyber, didn't Meta go down? Wasn't there a 3-hour period where we couldn't run ads? 70% or so of our spend is on Meta, so that's going to have a huge impact on our business if we couldn't run ads. So what if we could do an analysis and we could look at that period when Meta went dark and we could try to calculate the incrementality and look at what happened to our revenue. Did our revenue decrease drastically? Are we so dependent on click-through from Meta ads that if we don't spend all this money on cyber, we're not going to see our sales? Or did less happen? Did we not see a huge impact? And can we calculate the ROI of the ads dollars that we saw during that dark period and apply that to this year's data? Well, we were able to do that because of the stability and agility of our data platform. right? We were able to look at our data from last year and comp it to our data from this year because all of our KPI definitions are consistent across time. We're not manually pulling data, missing out because there's a retention window on Ads Manager data that you can extract, right? We warehouse it all, we store it all, and we own our most important asset. So we were able to look at that, we were able to do that analysis, and we saw, hey, nothing really happened to our revenue. It kind of just stayed flat, right? But it's a big gamble. If we choose not to spend all this money in advertising, we could really sink our whole cyber month. We could really see like there's not a lot of return on this investment. We're taking a huge bet. So the team thought long and hard about the decision and decided we were gonna take the gamble. So what you see on this chart here, the green bars are our MER. That is the percent of our net revenue that we spend in advertising. You can see on the days before, these dark bars here, the days before Cyber 5, we were spending quite a bit, right? And we were prepared to spend 2, 3, 4x what we were spending on the prior days going into cyber. That was our original strategy. But then because we made that bet, we slashed our spend. We cut it by probably 3 or 4x what we had planned to spend, right? And we waited to see what would happen. The line, the dark line that you see here, that's our contribution profit. Contribution profit is our gross profit, so our net revenue after our costs minus our ad spend. Our contribution profit went through the roof because we weren't blowing it all on advertising. We made all this money and raked in millions more dollars of profit than we would have otherwise. Our revenue scaled just the same as we would have expected it to had we spent the money on advertising, but we saved it. My friends, the only reason we were able to do this and be so confident in that risky bet is because we had the data strategy to back it, and we were able to ask that highly custom, advanced question of our data quickly and easily on Thanksgiving Day after our turkey. This really changed the game for True Classic for cyber. So, a great data platform drives incredible cultural change. When I walk into a new business, I fix this problem, and I see the impact of the cultural change that it has. People get so excited to show up every day and do a really good job because it's not so painful to ask and answer questions. They can really think strategically, right? But a lot of businesses skip this step. They think, let's just integrate a bunch of vendors together. Let's provide some reporting tools. Let's not invest in a data team. And I really believe it's one of the most critical mistakes you can make because the impact of that decision is so much more far-reaching than just your data strategy. It really impacts everything you know about your business and how successfully you're able to strategize. When asking and answering questions is easy, intellectual curiosity will flourish in your organization. All right, thank you so much. Please go forth and create incredible data platforms. Awesome. All right, I believe we have questions. We have a question box. Does anyone have a question?
None of it's working. Testing. All right.
We got one in the back.
Hi there. I was just curious if you could walk us through what your team at True Classics looks like that manages the data warehouse and oversees that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So True Classic, like I said, we're very profitability focused. So we are a tight team and we're a scrappy team. We don't have a lot of full-time employees and we're very critical about how we spend our money, right? So it's a small team. We have 2 full-time employees, I'm one of them, who specialize in data. And we're both pretty senior full-time employees, director level or above, right? We have a couple contract resources who support us with data analysis. And then we have an offshore agency that does data engineering. And I think that team is 4 or 5. So it's a small, tight team. That engineering team does data integrations, bringing all of our data from the different platforms where it lives and consolidating it into those platforms, building out those middle layers that I talked about, the metrics layer and the logical data model, right? And then myself and our other director, Nadine Elway, and our contract data analysts are responsible for turning that data into visualizations and then communicating it to the organization and helping the organization interpret it. That being said, I really believe, in a lot of organizations I see make this mistake too, your data team is not responsible for keeping tabs on all of your different programs by looking at the data. They're responsible for providing the data, training and empowering your stakeholders to interpret the data and pay attention to their own programs. So if you don't try to build a data team that is responsible for actually pushing all your reports and you are enabling your stakeholders with the data they need to provide your reports, you're going to be able to get a lot more bang for your buck out of your data team. Mm-hmm.
Hi. Really cool what you were saying about optimizing for profitability. Could you provide some guidance on like what is your target profitability as a company and what's like good metrics for e-commerce brands? And additionally, in relation to like gross revenue, what's your guys' ad spend if you're able to share that?
I had all my numbers approved before I came out here, so I'm going to be a little cagey on this one. But I think it really depends on your business, right? Some businesses have really tough times with their profit margins, right? Especially when you're younger and you're not ordering a lot from your factories, you're dealing with really tough profit margins. You're going to have less money to spend in advertising. I think the most important thing to be cognizant of is your advertising spend should always be profitable. So you should never have a ROAS below 1. And at True Classic, we really try hard to not have a POAS or profitable return on ad spend below 1. If we do decide to have some loss on our first order, we're very careful to forecast out when we're going to see the return on that customer and make sure that we know exactly when we're going to be paid back. So my cagey answer to was our profitability is as best as we can make it, right? The most important thing to do is just be aware of the long-term trend that you're going to see from those dollars that you're spending and try to make sure that every dollar you're spending is a profitable dollar.
Is this working? Yeah. This is really timely for us because we're at the start of this process. Would you, with Triple L 3.0 that obviously was announced earlier, would you go down the manual setup route, or do you think that can function as a kind of covering this capability for a business?
So I've been happy to be a development partner with 3.0. I like to call myself a partial PM for Triple Whale because we're using the tool so much at True Classic. When I joined True Classic, we were still in the phases of building out this data warehouse that I've described, right? But Triple Whale had been building 3.0. And when I started using it back in December, because this team is like the fastest development team I've ever met. It was just the logical data model, the metrics layer, and some light capability for visualizations. But because my data warehouse wasn't ready yet, I was actually able to use 3.0 for a lot of the data that I needed to be able to run my business on a day-to-day basis. So because they've built that middle layer, I think if you're a smaller business, it can work really well for you to solve this problem.
Ready?
Oh, fun.
All right. Hi, Christina. Just
Hi.
a quick question on, to the degree that you use the naming conventions and like meta ads, let's say for activewear to forecast and like, international. I guess to what degree are those used in your data tables?
Yeah, if I didn't have those, my data would fall apart. Like they're very, very critical. So we have a naming convention at the ad level, the ad set level, and the campaign level. And that tells us a lot about our creative. It tells us a lot about our campaign objectives and where we're targeting our spend. And it tells us like a lot more nuance, where we're flighting our spend, for example. So one thing I do is True Classic is scaling internationally. We have been updating our ad strategy to better advertise in different countries and localize our advertising. So we've been breaking out our naming conventions to include all of our different country breakouts in them. Because my data is centralized in that logical layer, I'm actually able to go take the updates to our naming conventions, incorporate them back into my existing logic to parse our naming conventions, and then all of my reports downstream, without me having to update them, are going to go through and adopt that logic, right? So I have one place I can make those changes. Because of that, our naming conventions can be agile. If we really want to answer like a new innovative question and we don't have it tagged in our naming convention, it's pretty easy for us because all we have to do is add it, update the layer, and then the visualizations update themselves.
Great. And I guess I have a follow-up question to that. It's pretty in the weeds, but sometimes countries can be consolidated, right? And like international campaigns. Are you guys able to like leverage breakdowns within Meta to pull into these data warehouses, or do you know if that's a feature? Like,
yes, we do. Okay. Yes, 3.0 does. Wow. And find me later and I'll nerd out about it with you.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, we have one in the front here.
Okay.
Want to toss that thing?
Yep.
There we go.
Awesome, thank you. Wonderful talk. Curious on your contribution point, where do you have discounts in that contribution margin?
Discounts are between gross revenue and net revenue. So it's very high up on the P&L, right? So basically, just to break down that P&L at a really high level, gross revenue is all of our revenue before any deductions, all of our revenue, including we have advertising revenue, we have lots of different sources of revenue. Net revenue is minus returns and predicted returns. It's minus duties and taxes and kind of those like non-negotiable costs, right? Then we have gross profit. That subtracts out all of our product costs and any cost we can dig up related to what we're selling. All of that feeds into there. I think a lot of businesses kind of account for some stuff later in the counting, right? We try really hard not to do that and factor all of that data directly into our gross profit calculation. Right. We then have our ad spend and we have our contribution profit. Contribution profit is gross profit minus ad spend. That tells us how much money are we actually making on the orders after you subtract out the impact of advertising. We then subtract out all of our operational costs, right? The cost of running the team, the cost of the business, all of our retail stores and the brick and mortar costs, right? And then after subtracting all of that, that gets us to our EBITDA, earnings before interest, tax, and amortization, I think, something like that. But that's basically the rundown of the P&L.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else?
I think we have time for one more.
Thank you. Fantastic talk, by the way. This was so helpful. I completely relate to everything you said in terms of consolidating your data, aligning on the definitions. True Classic is a 9-figure brand. I've done it at a $50 million brand. At what stage do you think an e-commerce business should start to take this effort? And for the earlier stage businesses, how do they get the expertise to actually do something like this and even get started here because they don't have an internal data team?
Yeah, great question. It is so much easier to not make this mess than it is to clean it up. Cleaning up this mess can be really difficult, right? If you want to clean up this mess, you need a full data team. If you don't make this mess in the first place, you may be able to make it a pretty long way without needing to invest super heavily in at least senior level, like internal data resources, right? So as early as possible, a while ago in my career, I worked with a brand that was doing like 500K in revenue, very small little brand. I did it in a Google Sheet. All right, I used a data integration, like an automated, it's like I think even like a Chrome add-on or like a really simple data integration tool to just pull data from Shopify and pull data from Amazon. And I built the data warehouse in a Google Sheet, and that incurred no cost for that person, right? So any scale you can do it. The key thing is you're going to crawl, walk, run. So you're going to build it at the smallest scale that you can, build it wherever you can, and then keep iterating on it and improving it. And because you're doing platform iteration, it's going to get better and better over time. But if you don't start early, your problem is going to exasperate outside of the scope of that platform strategy, and you're going to wind up without that central thing that you can improve on. You're just going to be building yourself into a black hole. So as early as you humanly can. Okay, thank you so much. I really love this topic, and no one ever wants to talk about it with me, so thank you so much for hanging out with me and talking about data platforms. I'd love to talk more about this to anyone who wants to find me after. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Would you like me to announce it?